Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I am really excited about this episode today. This guy and I have gotten a chance to kind of connect over I would say the last couple of weeks, but he is just phenomenal. He's a dad, he's a husband, and he's a director of not only television, but screenwriting, films, all those kinds of things. I'm really pumped to talk to him a little bit about his journey and also about his dad experiences. My good friend, Rob Hardy, has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been looking forward to this because, I've done a little bit of, we always do a little bit of research on our guests, obviously, before. And I kind of mentioned to my wife that, you're a director of one of her shows, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you got to ask him this. I'm like, "No, this is the dad podcast. This isn't about your TV shows that you watch." So I've been really looking forward to this. But are you? I mean, can you? Let's start it this way. Let's dive into a journey of Rob, kind of how you grew up, how you got into the line of work that you're in now, and then obviously this is a dad podcast, so I want to hear about your family as well.
Absolutely. So my name is Rob Hardy, and years ago, I'm Rob Hardy. I'm an only child and the product of a divorced home. When my parents were married, we lived in Nashville, Tennessee, and then they separated when I was in fourth grade. So my mom and I left Nashville and moved to Philadelphia. So I grew up in that area until I finished high school, and I would go back and forth between the city and summer times in Nashville. So just two very different experiences of what Philly was at that time, fast, aggressive, tough. And it's interesting because for me, not being around with my dad as much, there was just a lot of those lessons, especially in the city, that I had to learn on my own. So, so much of who I am was kind of molded by that and kind of molded by our wanting to be able to connect, but just we were from two different generations, and he was a really good guy, but just the way that he was built, not the most expressive person, but always there to let me know that he loved me, but just probably not the one to pat you on the back and say, "Hey, great job." So within that space of me being an only kid, I had a big imagination, did a lot of things on my own. And then that grew into a love of filmmaking. And there was a guy that was in my neighborhood. He had a camcorder, which at the time was just fascinating to me because we didn't have cell phones back in the day. With the camera, it was a camcorder. So we wound up doing a school project where we had to write something and then shoot it. And I love seeing that, and I love seeing the reactions. And that started my love. And back then, we didn't know anybody with an edit suite. So to shoot, you would press record and then you press pause. Then you go do the next thing and press pause, and you kind of worked your way through, and then you play it all back and have the squiggly lines in between where the edits happen. And that's what started it. And so I never forgot about that. And when I got ready to graduate, re-enter dad, who said, "Hey, listen, that filmmaking thing is not a real career. So I want you to get like a real degree. And then if you want to do the filmmaking thing afterwards, you can." So I went to school in Florida A&M University, and I majored in engineering, and didn't love that. But while I was doing it over the summers, I would do smaller projects here and there, and wound up doing a mini movie with a buddy of mine, a guy named Will Packer. And he and I, when we graduated, moved to Atlanta and became filmmakers. And so over time, we did some movies together, and I wound up getting into the television space from there. And in the midst of all that, got married and had some kids, two boys of my own. And it's been a really interesting ride trying to balance the work-life situation, having a career that you love and that takes you to these fancy, amazing places, but then coming home and being somebody's dad and taking out the trash and building go-karts or whatever those things are, while still having the relationship that you're trying to model. Because, when I grew up, my parents didn't stay together. So that's all kind of newer territory for me and for my wife. So it's been a real fun journey. And we have one kid that is a junior in high school. So he's about to leave the nest. And another one that's a little bit younger, but just the reality of the time away and how fast that moves, it's all been really interesting.
Yeah. That's cool. I think it's you talk about this journey of using this camcorder in high school to record a movie. It's funny. I when you talked about that, I remembered a thing that I did in high school with four of my best friends. It was the same kind of thing. We had a camcorder, and one of my buddies, his dad was, fairly well off. He had quite a bit of money. He had a Lamborghini, all those kinds of things. And we went to their house and filmed this movie of like him pulling up in the Lamborghini. And I don't even remember the story of this movie, but I just remember filming him getting out of the Lamborghini, and it was just a whole shoot. And we had to turn it in as a project. I didn't follow down that same path. I mean, it was a fun experience and fun to do, but getting into the film and movie, and it's a tough industry to get into. How did you kind of get over that hump of really getting your big break? Or what was your big break?
Well, what's interesting about our businesses is that it's the kind of thing where you have to find a lane to get into it. And so I didn't know much about filmmaking except for the fact that I go to some movies and I'd see names like Steven Spielberg or George Lucas, and they did these huge movies that were coming out. And then I wound up seeing, ironically, when I went to visit my dad one year, Spike Lee came out with the movie called School Days, and I wound up seeing him speak in person. And I was like, wow, okay, he looks like somebody from my neighborhood. And that was the first time that I thought, well, maybe this could actually be something. And I wound up being in a boarding school for high school. And we decided to make a movie about a superhero as like a funny takeoff of Batman. And there was a kid there, again, that had a camcorder, and he had done a short before. And we put all that stuff together and shot this movie that was an hour and showed it. And friends of mine that did the posters, people that were in assembly, did the announcements, and all that kind of stuff was, wound up happening. And so that was the first time somebody told me, hey, listen, you should do this for real. And so because now I had something to show, when I went to college, the same thing came back up. When I didn't love engineering, they remembered or had heard that I had done something before, and they always encouraged me. So for us, it was something that in Tallahassee, we wound up shooting a movie because I was doing a job that I didn't love, and I wrote something just for fun, and we shot it right there on our school. And much like high school, we basically found a local theater. We had a video projector because we couldn't cut it on film, and we charged people, and they actually paid to come see the movie. And then that's when a light bulb went off, like, oh my gosh, they paid us for this thing that we just did for free. And when we were finishing, we told our parents, we said, hey, listen, give us 5 years to pursue this film thing in Atlanta. And if it doesn't work, we'll go be engineers or whatever. And at least we know that we tried it. And so then for us, it was a matter of creating an opportunity. But because we had momentum from shooting an indie movie, we had taken it around to film festivals and then gotten it into Blockbuster, which was huge for us. Now, the money was not big. So nobody's going to go and buy a fancy car with the $6,000 check that we got, but it made us legit. And so for us, then it was all about trying to parlay that into another opportunity. And then once we shot our next movie where we raised money from family and friends, we put that out in a couple of theaters and then got a home video deal at Sony. And that was when we just kept trying to climb the ladder, but it was all born out of you create your own opportunity. And the only thing that I had done that was legitimate film was in college. I interned at a Christian TV station as a tape switcher, and shows would come on and I would just switch the tapes in the control room for free. And then on the side, when I moved to Atlanta, I would work as a production assistant on music videos. And I would see, as I called it, the big camera, where they bring out an actual film camera and we say, wow, there was the big camera. And I wound up getting paid like $75 a day flat. So if you wouldn't have triple overtime, you got $75. But by the time you spent your gas or did whatever. It was probably like $50, but I was on a set, and that was my way into the business.
Man, what a cool story. The fact that you're a young man and just out there wanting to do something with your life, and you found a passion that you loved and pursued it. You were grinding. That was like a hustle for you. And you stuck with it, and look where it's taken you now. I mean, you're doing all these different television shows, you know, ER, Grey's Anatomy, all these All American, Bones, Criminal Minds, all these different shows, just remarkable. It's just really, really cool. It's funny, that wasn't a passion of yours to begin with. That accidentally happened to where you discovered it. And now here you are with a family and trying to balance not only your career, but also this family structure of being this dad. Your parents, you know, they divorced when you were younger. What kind of an impact did that have on you? Because we know divorce in today's society is pretty known. You know, it's 50 to 60% of people get divorced. How did that impact you as a child?
When my parents divorced, it was really tough on me, and it was scary. And for some reason, I thought that it was my fault, because I'd see them argue towards the end, and it wasn't anything physical, it wasn't even anything nasty. It was just two people having continuous disagreements over what to do with me, or who was going to do what with me, and my dad worked a lot, my mom traveled, and all of those things, and I just kind of felt in the middle and overlooked. And then I remember like some papers came to the house or something, and I hid them because I was thinking, well, maybe if I hide these papers, they won't get a divorce and it won't be my fault. So I blame myself. And then my mom wanted to go to school after they split. So we spent a year in Dominican Republic, and I went with her, and it was a totally different environment, and everybody speaks Spanish, and there's like a shanty town, like literally across the street, with chickens and machetes and all the above. And then from there, we moved to Philadelphia, which was a completely urban environment. And like I said, took public transportation everywhere. And even though we had a car, just the kids in my neighborhood walked to school. You hop the city bus, or it was just a different thing. And it was just a time when I was growing, and the only stability I had at that time was mom and dad in the summers. And like I said, I always knew that dad loved me and wanted me to be there, but it just felt, now I'm changing. The environment is changing. I'm having to adapt. And there's nobody really in real time to help me with this, because dad is gone down. Well, dad is living down south, and mom is in school. And it's me with all the city kids, which is what I now was. So you learn a lot of lessons about girls and how to navigate city life, and, you know, how to handle the school bully, or clothes, or music, or whatever that is. You're trying to figure that out on your own. And it was just a very stimulating time, but it was also a little scary at times too, because there was no real strong male role model that was right there with me to say, no, this is how you do it. Here's how you handle this. And again, I think that for my dad, when I was with him, he would just try to overcompensate for me not being there. So there would just be a lot more strict rules when I was with them. Again, nothing mean, but just rigid.
Yeah. You know, when kids find themselves in a position where you were at as a young man, how did you stay out of trouble, or did you stay out of trouble? Because you tend to surround yourself with like you said, your friends and such. How did that keep you from getting into things that you shouldn't be doing? Because you didn't have really the structure of your parents guiding you.
You know, what helped me kind of stay on track was my mom was very intentional. So the neighborhood that we were in, there was I grew up in Germantown in Philadelphia. So it's right next to North Philly. The school that I was zoned for wasn't quite the best. And so my mom was able to come in early and say, you know what, he's not going there. And so not too far away, there was a private school, but it was like a working class private school. So I think in Philadelphia, especially around that time, the school system really got more amazing the higher up you went. on the lower levels, a lot of kids sometimes would go to Episcopal school or Quaker schools or whatever, and they weren't fancy as we think. They're just more safe spaces, we'll call it that. So she deliberately put me there, still in the same neighborhood, like 2 blocks away from that school. But through there, you're able to build friends from all over the city whose parents have the similar perspective. And then what my mom would do was say, well, if you want to go spend the night at somebody's house, I need to meet the parents first. I need to know who you're going to be associating with. And then on occasion, if there was somebody that came around that she didn't like, she'd let me know. She said, yeah, now that guy, I don't like. That guy gives me funny vibes. You see how shifty his eyes are? I don't like that. So she was around enough to let me know. And I think that as I got older and kind of began to challenge the rules more, which I did, and I hung out more, then she would say, okay, now you have 2 options. You can either go stay with your father, and he's got the more rigid rules, or you can go to boarding school right outside the city. So you're still close, but it's more of a place that's got more structure. Because I'm just physically not able to provide that because of the long hours that I'm putting in. So that was those were the options. And I wound up going to boarding school and right outside of Philly for high school.
Mm. Mm. All right.
And that was actually one that been an amazing opportunity for me. Although at the time I wasn't in love with those options.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, that's good. I mean, your mom provided that structure. I think it's cool that you said that your mom always wanted to meet the parents of the kids that you hung out with, because that's something that my wife and I did with my boys when they were growing up. It's like, okay, you're hanging out. You're mentioning you're hanging out with this kid, Billy. I've never heard of him before. Who is this kid? And then I want to meet his parents, because you'll learn a lot about a child when you meet the parents, because the child might be, they come and meet mom and dad. They might be cool little Billy and a good little boy, but when he's away from the family and he's out of your sight, then he's a completely different person. So I want to know what kind of home structure this kid has. And your mom was diligent about that, and it worked out. Boarding school, I'm sure that's got some stories in itself going through boarding school, but it worked out for you, and that's awesome. I'm just want to shift gears a little bit, because you've got 2 boys now, and you've got this career that you're really passionate about. For parents out there, this seems to be a common question that a lot of parents struggle with. But for parents out there that may be struggling with trying to get their career in order and trying to make sure that they're staying on top of their career, but also providing and being the right role model for their kids, how do you balance that in your line of work? Because you're having to go here, you're having to travel, right? You travel a lot to do different shoots and TV shows and stuff. So how do you find that balance with your own family?
Find the balance with work has been an ever evolving process that still, happens today. I think that at first I was not as good at it because, as a filmmaker, it's like being a freelance contractor. So when the work is there, you work as much as you can, or I work as much as I can. And then there are times when it's not as busy and I'm home more. So it's like that feast or famine type scenario that people in my line of work, or anyone that's a contractor or is an entrepreneur, can really relate to. So at first, I was trying to immerse myself in all things kids, from changing diapers, reading books, going on trips. I helped coach my oldest son's baseball team, and I'm not even a baseball guy. So things that I did, he wasn't doing then. So I was like, okay, I'll try this baseball thing as an assistant coach. But it was all about being present and doing things and, playing catch and all those things. And then when television especially kicked off for me, at that time, everything was in LA. So then suddenly you're gone for a long time. So you may be spending half the year, not consistently, but just half the year on the road, which makes it tough. So I was overcompensating when I came home and saying, I'm going to do every activity. I'm going to be super dad. But that just made me exhausted and frustrated and feeling like I had to work on the road and then I had to work when I came home and there was no time for me to recharge. And that made me cranky. And, I think oftentimes because I was so driven to provide, experiences, I didn't really stop to ask, hey, what do you guys really want to do? Or because I was trying to manage the business while being home, I wasn't always present. I'd be on my phone texting or setting up the meeting or, hey, give me a second. And so nobody really got all of me. And I think that what wound up making that change for me over time was more of a perspective of trying to be more understanding of, well, now that I'm here, let me find out exactly, first of all, who you are and what do you like and why? And let me figure out ways to pour into those things specifically. And let me also be flexible with my agenda, because my kids were famous for go, 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 go. Hey, but can we stop and climb this tree? What? Or, hey, but there's a pool at this hotel. I know you got to get to this meeting, Dad, but can we go swimming right now? There was always something like that. But I had to realize that had I not allowed myself when possible to swim, I never would have thought about swimming in the pool at that hotel for that weekend. I never would have climbed the tree. And those things were the things that they brought up the most, that they enjoyed.
Yeah, it's those little moments. I think that we, especially as dads, somebody that's got a real busy career, somebody that has to do a lot of traveling, we struggle with finding those moments and capturing those moments. And what I have learned in my parenting journey, just from other friends and such that have had kids, that these moments that they are spending their time away from their family, these little moments or memories that happen, and you're spending your time away from your family because you're more focused on your career, they're gone in a blink, right? They're gone. And then you've missed it. I tell the story often that, with all the coaching that I've done, I've coached thousands of kids, but with all the coaching I've done, there have been a number of times that I have coached players and I've never met their parents because their parents never came to the games or practices because they're always working or doing their own thing. And you never know what moment you're going to miss as a parent if you're not there. So you being intentional with the time and really diving into what it is they want to do when you're around to help capture those moments or those memories that maybe you have missed because you were on the road is awesome. I think, I share that, there may be a basketball game or a baseball game that you've missed because you had to take a meeting or you had to go to that meeting. Like you said, you had to go to this meeting. I can't miss it. Go ahead. Tell me about the game afterwards. But that game, your son hit his first home run.
Yeah.
And you missed it. And then you think, is it really worth it? Is my meeting really worth those memories? And it makes us think as parents, shoot, we only have a good 18 years to where they're off on their own. And that 18 years goes by in a blink of an eye. My older son's 24. I can remember when I dropped him off his first day at freshman in high school, and he's already out of college and working in a career. And it's just so amazing how fast time goes. And as parents, it's important for us to remember that we only have them for a second. And if you're not there every single moment that you can possibly be there or make adjustments to your schedule to be there for, you're going to miss out on something. And then that little piece of that bond or that trust breaks down just a little bit more with your child because they couldn't rely on their parents to be there.
It's interesting hearing you say that. I know that when I first started traveling a lot and I was shooting and I'd be going to Vancouver or New York or LA, it was super exciting at first. Mm-hmm. And then over time, you're like living out of hotel rooms. And I remember my youngest son, it was his first year playing flag football, and they went to the championship. They won, and he was the game MVP. Oh, wow. And the team mom called me because my wife had to do something with my older son, because he had an activity at the same time, so we were juggling. And the team mom called me. She says, "Hey, Bryan just won, and he was the MVP, and here he goes." And I'm on the phone. I'm in Canada. I'm super excited. He says, "Hey, Dad, thanks, but now it's snack time, so I'll talk to you later." And that was it. I had missed the game. The snacks were way more important. And I remember, my wife a few years later telling me, she said, "Hey, listen, we're really proud of you and we love what you do, but I just want you to know that you're missing it. And in a second, our oldest is going to be gone. And once they're gone, you can't get that back. Like you can come back home and we can go on a trip to some place, but it's not like his prom or when he gets ready for this or those things where dad can be more present." So it's always been, the reality of the career that you could have or the dad that you could be, and trying to figure out the balance. And maybe you're not the most amazing entrepreneur or business person ever, but maybe you're good and you can make a good living and you're okay with that. But maybe that affords you the opportunity to be home and be more present and have them say, "My dad is super because of this. Mm-hmm. My dad is amazing because he did come to my game, or he did help me, pick out the tuxedo, or when I had a conflict at school, I was able to get a different type of advice from him than I would have from mom, and he was there."
Yeah. It is crazy. For me, I've worked in corporate America, and it was always important to me to be a dad, to be a present dad, because when I grew up, my parents, they were blue collar workers. They worked a lot of hours. I can count on one hand how many practices or games they came to. I used to ride to games with my friends' parents because I didn't have a ride. And that's not a knock on my parents. It was just the way that it was for us. And I knew that I wasn't going to be that way as a dad. And for me, the fact that I was able to participate in all these sporting activities and be their coach and all that, when I went to my boss and said, "Hey, my son's going to be playing baseball this year and I'm going to coach. Is that going to be a problem?" They said, "As long as your work's getting done, I don't care." Okay, great. But I tell you what, Rob, if they had ever told me that's going to be a problem, we need you here, I would have found another line of work. I literally would have said, "Okay, then I'm going to have to turn in my resignation because I'm done and I'll find something else." That's how important it was to me. I wasn't going to give that up. And it allowed me to, coach my boys, my younger son and his basketball team. I was the associate head coach. It was just a real important season. We started playing really well that season, and we ended up going to the playoffs for the first time in like 10 years that the school had made it to the playoffs with a basketball program. And we went to the playoffs. Then we get to the CIF championship game. Wow. And we're in the game. My son's a captain and a starter on the team, and I'm the associate head coach. I got the head coach, who's a good friend of mine. And we won. We won the CIF championship. And it was the first time in the school's 100-year history that they had won a CIF championship.
Wow.
And so that was remarkable that we were able to do it. But what was more remarkable to me is that now my son and I together, he as a player, me as a coach, have championship, Super Bowl size championship CIF rings that we'll have forever, and the memories that come with it. Had I chose a career over my boys, I would have missed that. I would have missed that. And now my son and I can talk about that forever. And it's just, it just proved to me that what I was doing was right. And my approach to parenthood was right. And I always encourage parents that are watching this, listening to this. I always encourage parents to listen. I understand that your career is important and you have to provide food for the family and a roof over the head, protection and stability. I get it, but there are ways around it. There are ways around you being able to do that and be the successful parent that you want to be. And Rob here is displaying the fact that, yes, he's got an important career that takes him on the road constantly. But when he's home and he's there with his boys and his family, his wife, he's intentional. And that's where the balance has to come into play. Yes, your kids understand you've got to go travel and do this, television show. But at the same time, when you're home, you're like, dude, I'm home. I'm all in. Now I'm here. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to spend time together. I'm going to hear everything about you. You're going to hear everything about, just life, and just really capturing those moments when you are home. So parents, if you're watching this, listening to this, listen, make the adjustments that you need to make in your schedule. If it means taking a little less money for your family in order to be there for them, trust me, it will be worth it, because your kids will be 18 and then you can go tackle your career and make all the money you want. Just hang on, because you don't want to miss those moments. So
I love that. I love what you're saying. I also love the fact that you went and had a conversation, at your job. And I believe that sometimes when you have the courage to put that out there and then are able to deliver on the work side, then it also lets people know who you are. And it's like, okay, Bryan's a family guy. He's a dad. He's going to want to go do so-and-so. That changes the level of respect that a lot of people have, because a lot of people want to do the same thing, or maybe they are, or maybe they don't have the courage, but you're able to say that this is a priority to me. And then it becomes, so how was the game? How's the team going? And you're still able to function and do what you do. And then people support that. And that just goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. There were times, Rob, where I was having to go coach a game that was a ways away. It was in the middle of the day that I would have to leave to get to the game. So there were times that I was getting into the office at 4 a.m. So that way it allowed me the opportunity to leave at 2 o'clock so I could go to the game. So I would tell my work, hey, you know what? I have to leave at 2, but I'm going to get here early. So I make sure that the work's done. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing to not only, make you happy as the employer, but also be there for my family. 4 a.m.s, man. I used to get there at 4 a.m. just to get work done. And it was tough, but it was a sacrifice that I was willing to make. So good stuff. Good stuff. When it comes to your own parents, you had a good relationship with your mom. You had a good relationship with your dad. What kind of things did they teach you about parenthood that maybe you brought into your own style of parenting? And maybe there's some things that they taught you that you said, not doing that. What were those lessons that maybe they gave you?
My father taught me, first of all, that the most important thing that you can leave your kids is a good name. So he would always try to live his life in a certain way. So that way, if people heard, oh, that's Robert's boy, then they would think highly of me because of who he was. He also was big on working hard for what you wanted. He always felt like, listen, you can accomplish anything with this, right? So I want you to go out there, figure out what you want, explore, and work hard for it. And you're going to be judged on that if you can deliver that. And he also felt as though it was important for me to always have a family connection and to check on people in our family, so that way they were always a tie. So in my dad's family, on my dad's side, and he passed in 99, he was the glue that connected so many different aspects together. So I always got those things from him. From my mom, it was more about being fearless. So regardless, when the odds are stacked against you, you go out and you be fearless and pursue what it is that you want and make things happen. And I saw that more so in how she lived her life. And she was also somebody that always kind of talked to me and was just honest about things like, hey, here's what's happening out here in the streets. Here's why I don't want you to do X, Y, and Z because of these things. So she felt like if I just give you all the information and I'm brutally honest about what this is, you have the ability to make the most informed decision. So I think that those were both great things that I got from each one of them. And things that I would have done differently, that I've tried to do differently, is because my parents were so busy, my dad especially, when I was around, I learned to be present a lot more, and I worked harder to be there at stuff. And also too, I try to work harder with understanding them. I think my mom was a little bit better at understanding where I was coming from, not so much my dad. My dad had more of a mentality of I'm dad, you're son, and it's going to be like this. I love you, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to let you know that, but this is definitely a dictatorship and not a democracy. And not that it's more of a democracy with my kids. I think it's more so a matter of me wanting to understand where they're coming from. And the times that I really rebelled against both my parents, it's because I felt like they just didn't understand me or understand where I was coming from. Whereas I really want to understand with my boys, why did you do this, or why is this your perspective? Let me understand where you're coming from or who you are, so that way I can adjust my approach based on that. So we get closer to a place where it's more beneficial to us both. And I still may do some things that you don't like because I am your dad. I still may have you do what I want you to do anyway, but at least whatever decision I make is based upon truly understanding the situation from your perspective. I want you to have a voice. And I try to teach them that, you have some agency over the situation, and you have to be able to speak up and express what's in here. So that way there's always a bit of control that you have over your circumstances.
Yeah, so good. I love that because that's kind of the way I was with my boys, in that I wanted my boys to understand that the home was their safe space. And whatever it is that was on their heart or on their mind that they may be struggling with, I wanted them to know that they can talk to me or my wife. They can talk to us about whatever it is they're feeling. Or maybe it's something that they've done or haven't done that is going to be upsetting. I want them to be able to come to us and say, listen, this is what happened and this is what I did. And I used to, my boys played sports, so I used to use the team analogy. Listen, I don't care what it is that you've done or haven't done. I'm on your team, and I want to support you and help you through it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not going to be disappointed. There may be those times that I'm going to be disappointed, and there are going to be consequences, but I'm going to help you through those, and we're going to work through those together. And my boys always understood that. My door was always open, as I used to say. My door is always open, and I want you to come and talk to me. I don't want you to hold things in. And that was kind of that side of understanding them, right? Like you had talked about, understanding your boys. It was the same for us. So good stuff. That's awesome. For you individually as a dad, what are you struggling with right now? What challenges do you face right now that might be, some insight to other dads out there?
One of the things that I struggle with, it's an ongoing process for me, is recognizing that they're not me. It doesn't matter. You could take all our kids, put them in the exact same situation with the exact same people, and they're going to do something different. And sometimes there are things that I'll see and say, hey, I see this is coming your way. You may want to adjust and pivot and so on and so forth, because you think back to what you had to do coming up, but that's not who they are. And, they're in a much different world, even from a technological standpoint, with social media and all the stuff. And it's, that can be very tough sometimes to just trust the process and just trust what you pour in, the support that you give, and let them make their own decisions. I still struggle with that. I do. I also struggle with, at times, the idea of not overstepping, because I want to be there to support, but also you need to be able to fail on your own and pick yourself up and so on and so forth. And that is still born out of my desire to overcompensate at times because I am away. So it's trying to thread the needle of saying, well, I gave you all the information. I gave you all the facts. I'm here for support. Now you make it happen. And if it fails, then that's okay. Because you're learning from that. And we're still here to support you, as opposed to thinking that every failure is going to be a catastrophe. And those are things that I'm still working on. And I think I've gotten better with the work-life thing. I don't know that ever really works itself out in its entirety, because paying bills is still driven by what I do and going out and making it happen and chasing. So I still try to figure out ways, which for me sometimes is I may stay up later to do that or get up earlier to do that. So that way, like yourself, I have that middle ground area to spend with them and to say, you know, what do you guys need and how can I help and so on and so forth. It just may mean that I'm not getting in bed until 1 a.m. So, you know, such is life.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna break a little secret to you, and I'll break this to parents too. For you parents out there that are trying to find that work-life balance, it's impossible. There's really no such thing as trying to balance your work and your family life. However, in saying that, there are ways to course correct or compensate or adjust schedules in order for you to find a better balance for you and your family. And one of those things comes down to simply scheduling. I mean, you yourself, Rob, I mean, you have on your schedule meetings and things that you have to be at. And I encourage parents to put family time and family activities and time with your, date nights with your spouse and activities with your kids on your schedule, because that will ensure that, hey, this is on my schedule. This has to happen. We obviously know that there are times when things get messed up. Our schedule gets thrown a little curveball and we have to pivot. Right. So right. That happens, but if it's on your schedule, it's more than likely you will make sure that it happens. So good stuff. I just want to give you an opportunity, Rob. I know you've got different shows that you're working on. You've got a TED Talk coming up, I believe, that you're going to be doing. Let my listeners know what's coming up with you as far as the things you're doing outside of the home and things that maybe people can look forward to finding out from you.
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, I am doing a TED Talk coming up on breaking generational patterns to become a better father. So very excited about that. On the work front, I have a series that I've been working on called Power Book 2 Ghost. So the latest episode of that just came out a week ago. And there's another one that is called Power Book 4 Force that will be out very soon that I've worked on as well. And I have some different projects that are in development now. So doing a movie project with Amazon with Viola Davis. So super excited about that opportunity as well. So just different things, trying to be able to push myself as a filmmaker. So just excited about that. Oh, and locally too, in Atlanta, where I'm based, have an organization called Amazing Stories. And what it does is it goes and gives people opportunities to get trained and work on TV and movie sets as a production assistant. So it takes me back to getting started. Now we're trying to create a pathway where people can come in and break into the business and they don't necessarily have to go through the same things that I did.
Oh, that's awesome. Good. That's awesome. That really is. I think it's cool, the stuff that you're doing. For my listeners who want to look you up or maybe learn a little bit more about you, what are the best places for them to do that?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, it is The Real Rob Hardy. It's Real Rob Hardy, REAL Rob, ROBHARDY. And on Twitter, it's The Real Rob Hardy. Things that I do and have upcoming, I often post, sometimes just sayings and mantras. I post those as well. So those are probably the easiest ways to follow what I'm doing.
Awesome. I have a general question for you, just kind of off topic here, but kind of on topic. How is the strike? Has the strike impacted you, or is it going to impact you? How's that playing into your line of work?
Yeah, so the strike is a real thing. So there's the WGA strike, the Writers Guild of America. They went on strike this past Monday at midnight, and there are a long list of concerns that they have, everything from hours to money to flexibility to artificial intelligence. Those things definitely affect my business because as a director, a lot of the shows that are already going that have finished scripts can still go into production. But if there's a show that's upcoming that needs writers to write the scripts, all that stuff is frozen. If you have development that you're doing with writers and you want to go pitch those, all that stuff is frozen. Or if you want to have preliminary conversations with writers, all that stuff is frozen. So it stops newer business from happening. It stops a lot of the production that's already happening. But listen, what they're asking for makes complete sense, and I'm in full support of that. My guild, the Directors Guild of America, has kind of been lock in step with them on this. So there's a whole lot less work that's happening. And so we'll see how long this happens. Hopefully the studios will, be able to come to some type of an agreement with them so we can all move forward. But there are a lot of there are a lot of things that needs to happen to make that happen. And the last time that we had a strike, ironically, was on my very first episode of television, ER, and I lost my writer.
Oh,
so wow. on day 2, they were outside of Warner Brothers with picket signs, and that strike lasted for 100 days. And so hopefully this will last a whole lot less than 100 days, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I wish you luck on that. I hope it works out, and everybody in the end is happy and things get back in work and progress. So awesome. Well, listen, Rob, it's been just an awesome time talking with you, getting to know you a little bit. I'm looking forward to continuing our friendship, and I wish you all the best. I just really appreciate you being on the show, my friend.
Absolutely. And listen, thank you again and again, like I mentioned before, shout out to you and the Dad Up podcast, just on all that you guys are doing to just encourage fathers that are out there. And there are a lot of people out here that are looking for places like this where they can just get insight and encouragement and things of that nature. So just thanks for all the good that you're putting out there in the atmosphere.
I appreciate that so much, man. It means a lot. Well, listen, guys, this has been another episode with my good friend, Rob Hardy. If you want to check out what he's doing, just watch TV because you'll see the things that he's doing on TV. But if you want to follow him on Instagram or Twitter, make sure you do that. I'll put it in the show notes. You can see everything that he's got going on and the things that he is currently doing. And again, I just want to give a shout out, a thanks to my good friend, Rob Hardy, for being on. And listen, if you have not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.